Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today, and I have something I'm so excited to talk about today. It's something that ever since I got into comics, and I would try out different things like the characters that I grew up with, I would hear this recommended to me all the time. And I finally read it in a Marvel Essential, the old black and white re-releases of comics that were supposed to be cost effective, and they are, still to this day. What I'm talking about is Marvel Essential X-Men Volume 1. Now, the interesting thing with this is the Claremont run, with John Byrne later on in this particular book. It doesn't start with the Stan Lee era, and this is the first X-Men one to ever come out back in the day when they were putting out all the different series. They did Spider-Man books, multiple Spider-Man books, matter of fact. They did Hulk books, multiple of those. They did horror books and so on, in case you don't know about these things. And these are still fairly cost-effective, and as far as I know, this regular Marvel Essential X-Men line collected all the way up to Claremont's end of his run. And eventually they did another one called like Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, and I think there was 3 of those that covered the Stan Lee era that came before this. But for anybody who doesn't know, the Claremont run is kind of a total reboot of X-Men, and I never knew anything about the Claremont run. I knew that it was legendary, I knew people loved it, but it was also like, I think he took over in like 1975, if I remember correctly, and John Byrne came in not too long into that run. And Claremont was on it forever, for people who don't know. I think it was like 17 years, 15 at least, for sure. And he did a lot, from what I understand. And apparently he even changed the comic industry, and after reading this first volume, this 500 and some odd pages book, I can totally see it. I can totally see it. X-Men, from what I understand reading online, it was never super popular when Stan Lee was writing it. Like, it had an audience, but it was more niche than we realize, and it needed a reboot. And Claremont came in, and he did the Giant Size X-Men book that this book kicks off with. And I'm going to tell you, man, that giant size book, it's like, I think 80 pages or something. I can't remember how long it is. But it is fantastic. It is so good. As a little bit of insight to me, when I was growing up in the 90s and in the 2000s, all I knew about X-Men was the 90s cartoon, which I loved. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I haven't rewatched it in forever. I don't even own a volume of it on DVD or anything. I need to get around to watching that. But I knew that from the cartoons, and I knew the movies, which I love the first film to this day. And that's really all I knew. And I was a big Wolverine guy. I don't think any of the cartoons or movies, from what I remember, ever did Cyclops any good the way he deserves now. The scales have fallen from my eyes about Cyclops after reading this, just so you know. But I also got to see like X-Men Evolution, and I really liked that cartoon too back in the day. But I never understood what people were talking about any of the adaptations, never doing these comics from Claremont's run justice. Now I get it. I totally get it. Even though this book was in black and white, you have no idea how good the art is until you dig into it or read some of these older issues. Claremont completely blew me away with this. This is one of the best storylines I've ever read, one of the best runs I've ever read. And I know that seems super normie to say that. I've read a lot. And I've read a lot of modern, I've read quite a bit of older stuff, especially like with Batman. But I'm telling you, I cannot believe how good this is. I'm not a big fan of Stan Lee's writing style for things like Spider-Man, and like I said, I tried one issue of X-Men from back in the day from him, and I hated it, and I had to drop it. It was worse than what you see him do with a lot of Spider-Man, like dialogue and thought balloon writing. Whereas Claremont, his is very dialogue focused, and it's not really, as the book goes on, there's less and less thought bubbles. He tries to make it more cinematic. You start seeing a lot of splash pages, which I don't think was super common back then. As far as I know, I could be wrong about that. But I can see the influence of Claremont on the entire industry and what he did with it. But getting back to like, oh, by the way, I have one complaint I do want to say. Every time I read about Claremont online, and maybe this is not effective or infected in this earlier volume or in his earlier work until later on, I don't know. But a lot of people try to tell you that Claremont writes in a very Shakespearean way, not in the sense of like the concepts and the melodrama and whatnot, which is there. That makes sense if they're saying that. I've heard people say that the dialogue he writes is very Shakespearean, and kind of hard to follow. What are these people smoking? This is so well crafted. It feels to me as I read this book, even though this is aimed towards children, it is written in a way that feels like it's written for kind of older teenagers or young adults. It feels like it does not treat its audience like they're idiots, and it writes the dialogue, and even down to the damn thought balloons I'm not even a fan of. It writes those things in a way that are so distinct per character, I cannot believe it. I guess I'll start off with Giant Size X-Men. It's the full-on reboot. I did not know that Claremont was the reason that characters like Wolverine, who I think had, one appearance before this with Hulk in a fight, he was a villain. Characters like him and Nightcrawler and Aurora, or Storm, if you want to call her that. I didn't know Storm was like pretending to be a god over some people and stuff. You have Colossus, who I'm a huge fan of now. I never thought I would be a Colossus fan. I knew him from like cartoons and stuff. He is such a great character. I did not know all of these characters like those folks, and a guy that's like, I think Scottish or Irish, I know it's one of those, Banshee, would get brought into the team here. I didn't know that Claremont was responsible for that. I thought it was a later Stan Lee thing to bring in like Wolverine and stuff. It's not. It's Claremont. Completely and entirely. And I cannot explain to you how the team building part of all this works. The personality, this issue of everybody's personality is colliding when they're the new secondary and then eventually primary X-Men team. They have moments in here where they clash with the original X-Men, who, when the book kicks off, they've gone missing, and Cyclops was the only one to get back to Professor X after they visited some strange island. I think it was called Krakoa or something. That giant-size X-Men story was so good, dude. I don't even have words to explain it. The twists in there, the big one especially that I don't want to tell you about, involving the villain and the reveal of the villain, I could not believe how good that was for a 1970s comic. And I'm reading old Ghost Rider, the Johnny Blaze era right now, kind of interspersed with this. I did not realize how good comics were in the 70s. I did not believe that until I read this and I read Ghost Rider. This is impressive, dude. Really, really impressive. But yeah, when Claremont takes over, a lot of the original X-Men, like Angel and Iceman and whatnot, they all kind of go away. You have Cyclops take over the team as a leader. Once again, I am a massive Cyclops fan now. This book really brought him to life, and I feel like it's just going to keep getting better. The relationship between he and Jean just keeps getting better and better, too. I gotta say, though, I'm not a fan of Banshee. Banshee I've heard a lot of people talk about, but I don't think I ever remember him from anything. Cartoons, movies, nothing. Either he was a background character in a movie or something. I don't think he was in the animated series, but it's been like 25 years since I've seen that show, so I could be wrong. Not a big fan of Banshee. And like at one point we finally get Beast back, but like now he's blue, because earlier in the book he's like his regular Beast self. He's not furry and blue. I don't know what happened there. I think when he went off to become an Avenger at some point he talks about, maybe something happened there, but they don't really fill you in on that here. I would say that I enjoyed probably 80 or 90% of the villains that showed up in here, and a lot of these stories are multi-arc, multi-issue storylines, up to like 2 or 3 at a time, right? Where they tell one story. And I really enjoyed that too. But I gotta tell you, there's one particular villain that I remember off the top of my head that I thought was the lamest name of a villain ever. He wasn't that great of a villain in general, but his name was so garbage. His name is Eric the Red. What the fuck is that? Like, I'm pretty sure the way they wrote it, it was an older villain that was brought in by Claremont from the Lee run. But, oh, he's bad. He's just not good. Everything in the story is good but him, you know? But I tell you, the stuff they do with the X-Men here are so good. I feel like I like Storm a lot more, even though she's drawn super weird, by the way. Maybe it's the style, but even when Byrne takes over, it feels like her eyes are drawn in this weird slanty way that I feel like she's supposed to be. I feel like that's their way of trying to make her maybe more mutated looking at first and not just like a beautiful woman with weird mascara on her eyeballs. Over time, they fix the eyes and it doesn't look like shit anymore, you know? The costumes look great. Like I said, the art in black and white looks so great. There's another thing, too. Phoenix becomes a thing in here. Jean Grey becomes Phoenix in here. Not the Dark Phoenix, but there's, moments where she becomes that. It's so weird to me seeing in X-Men 3 and the Phoenix movie that she just, becomes the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix. Pretty much from the get-go, she's evil and doing bad shit to people. Killing X-Men, killing Professor X over and over again. She's always doing stuff like that. Here, I did not realize in the comics they took their time on her becoming the Dark Phoenix later on. But she starts out super powerful, all the temptations and stuff she's having with that, all the melodrama with her and Scott and Wolverine kind of catching some feelings for her. They do a lot here. Claremont, and especially Byrne when he takes over, and the art just gets better and better when Byrne takes over, dude. I'm just really in love with this. I cannot possibly explain to you, if you've never read the Claremont run and you kind of want to get it cheap. Not all of these Marvel Essential X-Men books are cheap, but this is a great place to start. Unless it's all on digital, I don't know. It's probably on the Marvel Unlimited app or something if you haven't tried that out. I haven't either, so I don't know if it's good, if the user interface is good. I don't know. But this was a great place to start if you like physical, almost omnibus-style books. I loved this. This was so good. I looked forward to trying to read an issue or so every day. I wanted to burn through this, because when I got to the halfway point, it was so good, dude, that I couldn't put it down. The fact that I have 10 more of these, because like I said, I think they covered the entire Claremont run in this Marvel Essentials volumes. A lot of those later books, especially 9, 10, and 11, are super, super expensive now. I had to find them dirt cheap, and I managed to get a deal, but dude, it's not common at all. Because that was towards the end when they stopped publishing these at all. The whole Essential line. If you can find the Marvel Essentials either in a good big deal for less than $300, you should buy it. I really think you should. And that's just reading volume 1. Maybe I'm lying to you. Maybe it's not a good idea. I don't know. But if you love X-Men and you've wanted to read the Claremont run and it's not on Unlimited, I don't know. This is a great place to go. I really firmly believe that you'll adore it. Dude, this was so impressive. I almost would buy Epic Collections. Even though I don't buy those, I own one in my entire... Well, I own two, actually, in my entire collection of physical stuff. I would almost go back and buy these in color, but I'm not going to. They're too expensive for my taste. But I loved this. The writing was so strong. When you have people like Magneto show up every once in a while, which is not very common in here, mind you, I really loved that. There's some horror elements in here. There's I think there was one storyline called The Strange Land or something like that I've never heard of. It was another storyline from another comic IP that Marvel did that I've never heard of as far as I know. They had a whole crossover there and some crazy storm hitting. There's one scene I really got to talk about too. There was a big fight and there was a couple of excellent Magneto issues, and there wasn't much, but there was a couple of really good tied together storylines involving Magneto. And there was this massive fight in inside a volcano when the ceiling is collapsing because lava is coming in through the ceiling. And dude, the tension there was unbelievable. You would not believe this came out in the 70s if you read it now. I'm telling you. Claremont's talent is so shocking to me, and it all comes from the Jim Shooter era. Say whatever you want. Maybe Jim Shooter wasn't in power yet. I think that was the late 70s to 80s. So he may have not been in there yet. But this is from that era when Marvel was at the top of its game. People reading stuff like this and recommending it to me, I get why they think Marvel's better than DC, especially at that time frame. Not that I've read a lot of 70s and 80s DC either. I've read a lot of Batman from that, but not anything else. This was so amazing. That's all I can keep saying. I'm sorry for the video being repetitive. I could not recommend the Claremont run enough just based off this book. So I'm going to dig more into these. I won't have reviews back and back. I'm kind of jumping around on my physical books that I have between Marvel Essentials and some other stuff I wanted to get to. So it'll be a little bit till I get to Marvel X-Men number 2. But in the meantime, totally check this out based on my recommendation. Don't spend a ton of money on the whole series until you check out maybe one volume or this volume or something. But I don't think it's going to be disappointing. I think it's going to be a really big hit for most people, especially if you have kids or teenagers that love X-Men or want to get into it. There's a lot of great spotlight on Wolverine in case you're interested in that. So impressive, dude. Anyway, who's your favorite X-Men from the Claremont run? Do you love this more than like the Lee run? Is it your favorite X-Men run of all time? Let me know everything you think about it down below with little spoilers, because I don't want to ruin it for myself. There's so much that he could do with this. I'm just ecstatic and impressed. I'm so glad I got to finish this book finally this week, and I've been trying to for like a week now, and I could not get around to doing it. Too many restrictions, too little time, you know? So anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.